money's on the over. So you see that there's significant interest there. Well, some interest in the under. I mean, it's a 25% difference in ticket counts and money. So more money was bet on the under compared to the amount of tickets there. So that's an interesting one. I'm going to stay away from that one. Arkansas can be boat raced, right? Ohio at Kent State. 71% of the tickets are on the over, but 96% of the money's on the over. Dual action right there. You get a lot of dual action on the over when it comes to early betting. Like everyone's going over in the UMass South Florida game. Went from 69 to 71, 87% of the tickets on the over, but 95% of the money's on the over. South Florida runs the ball a lot, but UMass plays. They play pretty fast, so and UMass gives up a decent amount of points, a lot of points actually. We have Clemson at Wake Forest. 37% is on the over of tickets, but 66% of the money's on the over. Went from 62 to 62.5. People like the over there because Wake Forest fast play, but Clemson, man, they have those quarterback issues. They might be running the ball a lot. Iowa State, 57% of the tickets on the over, but 98% of the money's on the over. So investment in the over on that one. You get a lot of over money early, okay? Because if you don't want to hit the over late, because the public tends to bet the over. Louisiana Monroe against Ole Miss. 62% of the tickets are on the over, but 90% of the money is on the over. Kentucky versus Texas A&M. 60% of the tickets are on the under, but 83% of the money is on the under. So under is a sharp side here. I've dropped it from 52 down to 50.5. Vandy versus Georgia. 75% of the tickets are on the over, but only 41% of the money's out on the over. So the under's a sharp side here, under 52. Cal versus Arizona. 52% of the tickets are on the over. It's pretty balanced, but 95% of the money's on the over. So a lot of people like that game going over. It's up to 57.5 from 56.5. And lastly, Wyoming versus Hawaii. 67% of the tickets are on the over, but 96% of the money's on the over. So that got hit too. Only went from 57 to 58. So it looks like there's some room there as well. If you have any questions about that, please tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Without further ado, let's bring on Mr. Brian Edwards.
And now we are extremely excited to bring back a well-known and decorated professional handicapper that does great work for VegasInsider.com, who is a friend of the show. You can hear him on his Games Galore podcast weekly, as well as on ESPN's Golic and Wingo on Friday mornings. Very happy to welcome Mr. Brian Edwards from BrianEdwardsSports.com. You can follow him on Twitter at VegasBEdwards. What's happening, Brian?
Not a lot, Kiev. Thanks for having me again. Looking forward to another great week of bets and ball games and a pretty good fight out there in Las Vegas as well.
Oh, that's just perfect, my man. Gosh, I can't believe how fast this season is moving along here. We're already on college football week 6. We're almost to the halfway through point. It's just absolutely flying by, my man. And really excited to have you. And I know you're a very busy man, so why don't we get right into a couple of these great games here. So the first one I want to bring up is Kentucky versus Texas A&M. Texas A&M is laying 5.5 points. It feels like we should be talking about basketball right here, right? Kentucky
right
versus Texas A&M, and then you have two very strong top 25 type teams playing against each other here, my man. What are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I made A&M a 6.5 point favorite. I have A&M 18th in my power rankings. I have Kentucky 14th, but going to College Station is certainly a big deal. And I don't really like Dumbo, but I do give A&M the coaching advantage, or the head coaching advantage. Not enormous, but I do give them the head coaching advantage, and I give them the quarterback advantage and being at home. And this is it's a tough run of games actually for A&M as well, just in the sense that Arkansas was a rivalry game, and then was at Bama the week before, and then they had a week between Bama and Clemson. But I don't think A&M should be downgraded on their performance really against Clemson or at Alabama. Let's see how many teams hold Alabama to 45 points or fewer and lose by only 22 this year. I doubt there will be many. Man, great story out of Kentucky so far this year. I wrote this summer that they had a lot of NFL talent on this team. When you talk about Benny Snell, the tight end C.J. Conrad, the safety Mike Edwards, the defensive end Josh Allen, the linebacker Jordan Jones. Stoops has done a good job of recruiting the state of Ohio since he's been there, and it's just all come together this year. What I wasn't certain about coming into the season was the quarterback position, and I'm not necessarily that certain on it now. I mean, he's got a 2-to-5. Talking about Terry Wilson, who originally signed with Oregon, he's got a 2-to-5 TDINT ratio for the season, but a lot of the turnovers were in the opener against Central Michigan, and against Florida, he was outstanding, and he gives you that enormous scrambling threat. I mean, he is the guy that can, Lamar Jackson style, rip off a 50-yard run at any time, and he has a big arm. He threw a couple of very good deep balls against the Gators. So Kentucky has looked great. I mean, I don't count them out in the spot at all. It's a pass for me in terms of the spread. In my contest where I have to pick it, I'll probably take Kentucky. But I think that it'll be a tight game, and A&M will probably win a nail-biter. But, man, if Kentucky can get this one, they would go into an open date, and then Vanderbilt at home. And, like you kind of noted in the intro, we're normally putting football to bed in Lexington by now. And not only we're not putting it to bed yet, perhaps they're a threat to go to Atlanta in the SEC championship game for the first time ever. They've never been since it started in '92.
Wow, that would be absolutely amazing. And to tell you the truth, I gave out Kentucky here, and I'm afraid I'm not sure if I'm on a public dog here. I looked at the first line movements, and it looks like it went down from 7 to 5.5 right away, which usually tells me that there's more sharp money, back in the dog here. And then, talking to some of the people I know and and some of the big bettors out there, they tend to lane A&M here, the 12th man there. So I'm kind of thinking here, did I make a mistake here? I kind of have it like this should be more of a pick 'em game, or at least within 3 points. And I saw the 5.5. So that's why I lean that way.
Well, I'm not trying to talk you off it. I mean, Kentucky's got some mojo going right now, and they're brimming with confidence. And not only have they won all these games, they've won them all by double-digit margins. Granted, the Florida game, they had a stupid score on the last play, so that was a little misleading. And that unbelievable made field goal that was called missed field goal. But anyhow, I'm not trying to talk you off it, man. You got a dog that's red hot and on fire. So we'll see what happens. I'm not on the game.
Yeah, if I think if Kentucky scores first, it's definitely gonna bode well for them. If they can get a little bit of a lead here going into the second quarter, then they, Texas A&M might get a little bit more one-dimensional here, and that would play into Kentucky's favor. But my only worry is if Kentucky has to rely on their pass game, this is where that spread could be a little bit dangerous there. So,
that's a great point. We've yet to see Wilson have to drop back and throw. I mean, I'm not looking at his game log right now, but I mean, I don't know that he's thrown it more than 20 times in a game yet, because they've had the lead, and that's their recipe for success, because they've got a good defense, and you want to run the ball with Snell, yeah, as long as they are not, like when we see them get in a game with a trailing, we may see them get blown out and they'll get exposed. But yeah, that's a great point you make there.
Yeah, so maybe possibly even a good live betting spot for whoever scores first in this situation. Well, awesome analysis. Let's go to the next game, which is pretty much off most people's tickets and boards, but we love those small games, the MAC type style. Buffalo facing Central Michigan. Central Michigan is actually giving up 7.5 points here. Now, I have to admit, I do have a Buffalo 12-1 ticket to win the MAC here. Not to boast or anything, but I was...
Great odds, Kiev. I'd love to have that ticket right now.
Oh, that ticket's shining right now, but... I was high on Buffalo at the beginning of the year because Lance Leopold used to coach at UW Whitewater back in my stomping grounds in Wisconsin. I knew all about this guy. He's great. And then the value changed, right? All of a sudden they're laying points against Army over 7. And I'm like, wait, everyone's on Buffalo. I kind of laid off them a little bit, but this is an intriguing line to me. Central Michigan plus 7.5. You got Central Michigan coming off the loss to Michigan State. Did they improve because of that game? You got Buffalo that, has that get up spot after getting beat at home from Army. Do you have any thoughts on this game?
Well, it's a big point we need to make in the loss to Army last week. Buffalo scored 36 points or more in every game before that, but their stud wide receiver, Anthony Johnson, and I'm not talking about Rumble from UFC, he was out last week. I'm pretty sure it's a ham. Well, I saw one injury report say hamstring, the other one leg. But I've seen that he's been upgraded to probable for this week. So he didn't play against Army. That's a big deal. I mean, that's Tyree Jackson's favorite target, and the quarterback for Buffalo, Tyree Jackson, 16-3 TDI&T ratio. Now he's got another elite wide receiver in KJ Osborne with 23 receptions, 410 yards, and 6 touchdowns. But Johnson, he had 18 receptions, 308 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns before missing last week, and he is supposed to be back. So that is a pretty big deal. I don't know what to take out of Central Michigan, covering the Michigan State game last week. I kind of just think Sparty's just not as good as they were last year. Mm-hmm. But, CMU is 4-1 against the spread so far this year, the lone non-cover when Kansas stunningly blew them out. And they played Kentucky pretty tough. I mean, that game was 21-20, it may be into the fourth quarter, definitely pretty late third quarter. So CMU, they're decent, but if I could get the number at 7, I would lean Buffalo, but I doubt I'll be a play on this one.
Yeah, that's coming to what I was saying. I think there's just too many people on Buffalo right now. They need another loss against the spread here at least for me to look in that direction. I think, at 7.5 here, home dog, you almost have to lean Central Michigan here. So I completely agree with you. I was hoping, someone would talk me back into betting Buffalo, but it's not going to happen today, apparently. Yeah. Oklahoma versus.
I'll trade you something for that 12-1 ticket though, because I like the chances to win that side of the match.
Well, that's going to be a great hedging opportunity as well. We'll take a look at that and discuss that with our listeners later in this season here. But the next game is possibly the biggest this week. Oklahoma versus Texas Longhorns. Texas given 8 points at home. The Red River Shootout at Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas, my man. Have you got a chance to look into this one?
A little bit. I'm probably going to look into it a little harder as I'm actually trying to pull up the injury report right now and see if I notice anything of note. But I did make Oklahoma a 13-point favorite, which was probably a little aggressive on my part. I know Tom Herman has I don't have the stats in front of me. I mean, even if you go back to, which I think is kind of cheating on the stat, but a lot of people will add his last year as an assistant at Ohio State to his underdog stats. But, I mean, he was terrific at Houston as a dog. Obviously, his last year, I just off the top of my head, not even looking at their team page, I remember taking them plus 600 on the money line and plus like at least 17